Well, hello everyone. How are you today? It's Rebecca Fannin here with Silicon Dragon Online. And today we have a wonderful guest. Hello, Jonathan. How are you? Jonathan
Hi.
Chi from Hony Capital. He's joining us from Shanghai. So as you're tuning in, I'll just say a few introductory remarks so that we can get started. If you don't know us, Silicon Dragon Ventures is our portal, our website, which gets you access to all these other goodies here, the videos, our mobile app, our newsletter, our membership, and so forth, and our books. Actually my books, but I'll call them our books for here. So 3 of them, and including some translation. The Chinese edition is coming out any moment. I keep saying that, but it really is. So stay tuned for that. Chinese edition of Tech Titans of China. And thanks for all you people who signed up for the Silicon Dragon Circle membership. I really appreciate that. That's how we're able to have this show and have great guests like Jonathan. So I just said hello to Jonathan, and I'm saying hello to everyone out there. Jonathan, I thought we would go through just some, casual conversation first before we dive into some audience questions. So everyone out there, please warm up your questions. So today I'm going to leave some extra time for questions. And because Jonathan is all warmed up, he's ready to go. It's morning time. He's in Shanghai. It's morning time. He's had his coffee. So, he's ready to answer your questions. So that's good. Okay, so let me just say a few introductory words about Jonathan. Actually, I met Jonathan a while ago, back when he was at Sky9 Capital, maybe even before when you were at Tencent, Jonathan, working with their venture capital group. But Jonathan has a spectacular career. You can see here, he has worked at Cisco, Tencent, and in venture capital for the past several years. Previously to joining Hony Capital, just recently, he was head of US Europe at Foshan RZ and Foshan Group, US representative for Foshan Group. So he did a lot of stuff here in the US and Israel. And now he is residing pretty much in mainland China, right, Jonathan? And working in mainland China.
Yeah, technically I'm still traveling back and forth, but because COVID, it's not as smooth as before. So I end up having to spend a lot of time in this trip in China.
Sure.
And one correction. I'm actually right now. I'm this moment in Beijing. Yeah, I travel back and forth a lot.
Okay.
Right now, I'm staying in a Beijing hotel.
Okay, that's good. Location: Hony Capital, Hong Kong, Beijing. So right now you're in Shanghai, right?
Right now, I'm at this moment. I'm actually in Beijing. So last time we took over the phone, I was in Shanghai. I flew to Beijing.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're out of quarantine then.
I'm out of quarantine at the moment. Yes.
Okay. So you just flew over from San Francisco not that long ago, like 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
And,
I flew from San Francisco to Shanghai. Yes, and 14 days quarantine in Shanghai. And Beijing actually requires technically 21 to 28 days of quarantine. So I cannot go to Beijing after I finish my quarantine in Shanghai. So I spent a few more days in Shenzhen and Guangzhou, and then I flew to Beijing.
Oh, right. So you were in one of those hotels near the airport?
You mean right now?
No, you were. When you got
during the quarantine, yes.
Yeah, when you landed, you had to stay in, and you could not leave the hotel room, right?
No. If I did, the alarm will sound.
Oh, okay. And was the Wi-Fi any good? I mean, what did you do for 2 weeks? In there. I mean, did you have good Wi-Fi or not?
Yeah, the Wi-Fi was intermittent, unfortunately. So even the data connection was also intermittent. So that was very bad experience. So
Oh, I see.
so
And
I
then,
have to stay in the room and not too much connections to the outside. Yeah.
what
Well,
did you
I can call people.
you could talk to people, you could call them and you could WeChat them.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty much what you did then. Okay, so now your focus is on tech-driven investments in China. I mean, this has been your historical focus, China, Israel, and the US, and all of these deep tech sectors of
Yes.
AI, robotics, enterprise software, semiconductors, AR, VR, cloud.
Mhm.
Some of your notable deals. We can talk about those in a minute, and your WeChat experience via Tencent. And now I'm going to stop the share so we can see one another. And everyone, I encourage you to ask questions because I'm going to get quite a few people coming in. And we have people who are chimed in from Hong Kong, Silicon Valley, New York, and elsewhere. Maybe even, no, I'm probably not Israel at this time. It's way too early time right now.
Yeah, yeah. For Tel
Yeah,
Aviv.
yeah. So, okay. So, well, let's see. Let's see who's got a question first. Hal Kelman has a question. And he wants to know, Hony Capital invested in Andrew Ng's artificial intelligence company, Landing AI, about 3 years ago. Anything to report?
Yeah. Okay, very quick background on this. First of all, so this deal happened before I joined, but I got also involved later. So for Landing AI, probably people will all know it's from the AI guru Andrew.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
sure.
so Andrew, if I remember the history, because I wasn't involved from the beginning. So for this deal, Hony had used to have a big portfolio called trying to remember its Chinese name. I think it's called Zoom Line. It's actually big manufacturing. It's factories in
Yeah,
China, which manufactures agriculture machinery, and they need a lot of autonomous driving, like automatic. It's actually computer vision and deep learning driven, so that they can drive the machinery by itself. To
yeah.
in the yeah in the farm field. So there's a very good connection from the company
Mm-hmm.
with the artificial intelligence, especially deep learning technologies. So they form a very good strategic alliance back then. So and in the end, there's if I remember correctly, the deal structure is a joint investment from Hony and also the manufacturer company, which is a big listed company in China, which is also a Hony portfolio. So that they co-invested in Landing AI. So they try to form a joint program,
Right.
AI research program, so that they can do a lot of advanced innovation in that field. I don't think they have something which is in production at the moment. It's not that easy, to be honest. So if we have time, we can talk about a little bit about the whole autonomous driving field. So I mean, no matter it's robotaxi as a Waymo, right? Google's Waymo, or autonomous semis, like trucks, right?
Sure,
Or this kind of agriculture related machinery. It's
sure.
still ongoing. So there's still a lot of work to be done. So I
Okay.
think at this moment we're not reporting any real production, but I think the progress is still pretty good. That's from what I know. Okay.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so Jonathan, since you're in the middle of this whole US-China tech situation, what's your read on how things are going? where do you think we are right now? Do you think the Biden administration is going to make things easier or tougher? Just what's your read on it?
Yeah, this is always it's always a question asked, especially in my situation. I know, but it's definitely a huge. I would say it's $1 trillion question. I'm not I'm not in a very good position to answer to give a very clear answer, because it's really very complex. So a lot of things still developing. But I would say from China's point of view, there are a lot of innovation has to be, done, right? So there, for example, AI and for example, cloud, all these key innovations. So they spend a lot of efforts and time in developing. And from my point of view, actually, the two sides will no matter what, will still collaborate a lot. Mm-hmm. So no matter what, because in China's case, they have a lot of use scenarios. So for example, yeah, like we just mentioned, Lightning AI is a very good Silicon Valley company, right? But for a lot of these technologies to work, so China actually is providing a huge market and a lot of use cases, and adoption speed is also pretty fast here in China. So and on the other hand, I mean, on the research side, I mean, China in the end we still need to work with US. I mean, even people are talking about decoupling and such, right? But I don't think it's that easy to decouple R&D. So if you look at it, right, academic and also in industry research, so it's very connected. There's no way to decouple those. For example, right, all the universities are still working together on all those research papers, right, conferences. There's no way to have two different tracks of top conferences. So I think in the end it will still be very connected. I mean, if you look at, I mean, you cannot decouple internet, right? So internet is just one. So and also if you look at all the software, people are using exactly the same set of open source software, right? So right, it's no way to start using very different groups of open source software. So that's my point. So basically, people will, I mean, the two sides will still work together on the research side, and but on the market side, then there will be different use cases. But China has some advantage of implementing, executing stuff, which US can also maybe collaborate and get a lot of experiences from on the production side. Yeah.
Right. But what about this whole cross-border investment angle, though? China to US and US to China. Is that pretty much history now?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully, I mean, technically, people are still trying. I mean, because I mean, if you look at investment community, right? I mean, investors are very bipartisan or very neutral, right? I mean, investors don't really care about a lot about politics, because we're driven for financial returns. So, right. I mean, investors are investing. If you look at it, I mean, there's still, I mean, you still see so many investors from the US investing in China, right? If you look at the recent, mega IPOs from China, I mean, if you look at the investors who backed those deals, they're still mostly from the US, interestingly, right? And the people who get the those huge returns, financial returns from those Chinese deals are still Americans,
right?
If you look, I mean, if you look at Binance, right? If you look at, I mean, those are or backed by US dollar denominated VC funds, right?
Right.
and the Kuaishou, right? Kuaishou, you probably know, it's also a $100 billion, $100 billion US, right? Deal listed in Nasdaq. It's again mostly backed by US funds. So on the other hand, right? So the Chinese are still looking for deals. I mean, interesting and advanced frontier technology. Those, those are mostly for investment returns. So you cannot stop that trend.
Yeah, but what about the IPOs on Nasdaq and the New York Stock Exchange? I mean, that's iffy, isn't it, for the future?
Yeah, exactly. It's also getting risky, but I personally I don't think it will stop, because again, all those startups are already backed by VC funds from the US. So there has to be an exit in Nasdaq. Right. So
or maybe they could go to Hong Kong. They could go to Hong Kong as well.
They can go to Hong Kong too. They can go to Hong Kong too. But it's still different. Hong Kong is still not Nasdaq. Hong Kong is still more like restaurants, clothes, fashion brands. It's still more like a traditional business, place. So, but for technology, it's still Nasdaq, right? So I don't think that trend can be easily reversed. So yeah, from my personal view, I think it still be ongoing. It just we'll still keep on hearing a lot of noises.
Right. Oh yeah, a lot of noises. Well, so talking about how both sides need one another. Certainly, if you see Tesla and Apple, they're not going to give up on the China market.
Exactly.
It's so fast growing. So are there other examples of
people and Chinese people also love their brands. If you see a lot of media, but almost every single person I met in China, they're all using Apple. They are Apple fans, right? It's all iPhones, iPad. Yeah, I don't know anyone who is not using Apple products in China at this moment, right? And Tesla is hugely popular. Elon Musk is totally a hero, probably more than in the US.
Right. So what are some other examples of profitable collaboration, U.S. efforts and U.S. company efforts in China? This question is coming in from Lawrence Tang of Invest Hong Kong. So keep the questions coming, by the way. These are good questions. So what do you say to Lauren's question here? What do you think?
He's asking,
are there other specific tech areas that you can see profitable collaboration, U.S.-China, U.S. company efforts in China?
There's still a lot of different types of collaborations, right? Yeah. So we just mentioned that U.S. companies selling products to Chinese market, right? And there are also a lot of, we're talking about consumer products, right? But you're still seeing a lot of enterprise products, cloud related,
right?
People are still using, semiconductors, even though it's getting a bit tricky, but no matter what, people are still using a lot of Intel's, Nvidia's, right? So it's, if you look at all the those Bitcoin, and they're still using all the Nvidia, chips. So it's still huge market and a huge growth in China, right? And there are even a lot of even more fundamental applications, right? Like of course, like internet, right? Or there are a lot of infrastructure level technologies. So China still a huge application area for all those technologies.
Okay,
and AI also, right? All those advanced technologies. Yeah.
sure, sure. What did you make of some of these Chinese tech titans stepping down from CEO of their companies? What did you make of that?
Yeah, it's also a very tough question. I mean, I would say it's not new, right? It's not news. I mean, it's been there. I mean, it's been happening. If you're familiar with China, if you just look, I mean, it's not just technology area. I mean, a lot of traditional businesses, you see a lot of titans. I mean, dealing with different issues. I call it issues, right? I mean, so there, it's always there. So it's not new, and it won't stop. But that's how. I mean, for the past 30 years, that's how Chinese economy is. The model is working. You know, um, a public sector and private sector, how they work together. Right? It's always a balance. If sometimes the private sector is a bit too strong, there will be some I call it adjustment, right? So it's always like that, right? If you look in the past, and today people put a lot of focus. I mean, a lot of spotlight in technology, but if you look into the history, you see in retail, in manufacturing. I mean, it's always been like that in finance. So it's not a surprise, but I think it's a good balance to some extent, because that's the way the country is. It's balance itself and try to find the what do we call it, probably the best or the smoothest path to the
I
growth.
see. So you're not making anything more of it than Jeff Bezos stepping down from Amazon. It's just a transition. I mean, is there?
You mean I'm trying to answer. So you mean comparably, or I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same. It's similar. I mean, yeah, in the US, it's purely, I mean, it's purely just the company itself, right? But in China, it's a little more complex. But in the end, I mean, because China is a Confucius culture, right? In Confucius culture, you have to maintain an overall, or what they call it, a big balance. I mean, versus smaller balances, right? So each company is only a smaller balance, but you need to maintain a much bigger balance across the whole board. That's how people are looking at it. I mean, look at pandemic is also a good example, right? That's why China can make a good control on the pandemic, because they look at us as a whole balance, right? So that's why, I mean, they can quarantine each individual's individual who come into the country, but right. But if you leave all the balances into a smaller scale, then the bigger balance will break. I don't know if I make my point, but
Yeah,
it might not be.
yeah, sure. I think it's well said.
It's more like a cultural thing.
Sure, of course. Yeah, no, I get it. And I think everybody who's listening in gets it as well. So, Jonathan, what are your goals in joining Hony Capital, and why did you leave Foshan?
Okay, it's a bit personal, but it's also a good question, because it's probably representing some trends in China, because Hony is a fund which is very successful in the past, but to some extent I have been mostly focusing in traditional businesses. Okay. And for example, manufacturing, which I just mentioned, right? And retail, finance, pharmaceutical, those are all very successful, but also traditional. But so today, again, the whole society and the economy are moving toward technology innovations, right? So everyone are trying to get more try to be more involved in technology and getting more technology related deals and such. So yeah, and from my point of view, it's a good brand, good platform.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have good value adds to bring in more technology aspects into a more a very big firm with traditional backgrounds. Yeah, and Foshan has a lot of cross-border, well, which Hony also has, but my previous position in Foshan are very focusing cross-border. But of course, cross-border definitely got some impact in the past few days, in the past 2 years, right? For sure. So yeah, that kind of explained the change, but yeah.
Okay. Good. So we have a few more questions that came in. So one is, do you think the Chinese state will encourage one sector more than another? And what do you see that the Chinese state is encouraging right now? What is it, AI? I mean, what do you see are if you had to name three tech sectors that the Chinese state is encouraging the most right now?
Rebecca, you broke up a little bit. So which three sectors again?
Yeah, which three sectors is the Chinese state encouraging?
In terms of technology?
Yes, in tech.
In tech.
Yes.
You mean the top three?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, if you have to look at the headlines, probably you will see 5G for sure, AI, semiconductors, yeah, cloud, yeah. I don't know which one is more is higher in terms of priority, but you definitely see a lot of those coverages, and yeah, the whole investor communities are talking a lot about those. I mean, also the government. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, all right. Here's a question from Paul shared. Chinese government seems to be taking a more assertive stance towards the U.S. For example, the Anchorage meeting. Are Chinese tech people feeling any spillover from this, or any change in the way the government is dealing with them, or signals they are sending?
So your voice somehow
Can you see the question and answer box here?
I see the chat. Oh, okay. The
Go under the
okay.
Q&A and scroll down to Paul, and then you can see his question.
Okay. The question from Paul, right? Okay. The Chinese government seems to be taking a more assertive stance. Okay. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Jonathan. We're asking you a lot of tough questions, but
yeah, this is tough. I mean,
it's not often we get an expert like you.
It's not like I'm trying to avoid, but it's really difficult because I'm also learning myself. So actually a lot of these questions also are also my questions to some extent. So because I just landed here, right? So and I'm also talking to local people and trying to get more consensus how people feel in here. And yeah, for sure there's some dispute, and but I have to say in the tech community it's still more bipartisan, or more more neutral. People are really just working for growth and and financial returns.
Okay.
So yeah, people are finding their own ways to try to get around all this. That's probably a simple answer for that. But if you look at all the details, of course, there will be a lot of workarounds and
Sure. Well, what's the general mood? Are people upbeat, or are they? What's the general mood? I mean, you've been in Shanghai, now you're in Beijing. What's the general mood?
From what from the people I have talked to so far, I think it's mostly upbeat. It's very active. and people are quite hopeful.
Okay.
I really, of course, look very what do you call it? What's the best word? It's not stressed, but of course, people are working very hard, long
They are.
hours. So,
Okay.
yeah, they are probably, and so that means they feel pressure for sure, right? There you can hear a lot of challenges, right? So, I mean, especially in investor, community. I mean, if you talk to a VC, I believe will be very, especially. So today you can see a very very big what do we call it, 20/80 rule, right? Because the top 20 not of the funds actually takes a lot of support and good, and they have more access to good deals. But everybody under, I won't say 20%, everybody under maybe 5%. The 95% of the investment community actually quite pressured to put in even more efforts to do fundraising and to look for deals, right? So yeah, it's a lot of challenges, but also I mean, you can see people are still very hopeful and very active working.
Okay. And what about the general population? What is the mood that you pick up when you're out there on the street or shopping or whatever?
Yes. So so first of all, I think most of the business are back. I mean, if you look at the before and after pandemic, right? So from people I talked to a lot of taxi drivers, right? Hotel workers, but from what they told me, the business are back, right? If you go to restaurants, theaters, right? So you see huge crowds,
Right.
and yeah, they have concerts. They're holding big concerts, and
Oh, okay.
parties.
Wow.
So and yeah, and they just had a very big long break, right? May 1st
Oh,
break,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Long weekend. If you look at all those pictures, yeah, all the tourist attractions are so packed, right?
Right.
I mean, yeah, in general, I think things are coming back, but I would say still not exactly totally back to the original level from what I see here,
Mhm.
even though people are, yeah. So I mean, if you look at a hotel, well, I don't know. I mean, from my general, I mean, the hotel price is a bit cheaper than before, but I still have times I cannot book my favorite hotel. So
Oh,
depends on
okay.
the different time. So yeah,
And
but I think
what
again,
about,
mhm,
yeah,
go ahead.
okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's interesting. So so some hotels were already fully booked. Um,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. I think
Okay.
the prices, I think, is not as expensive as before. I think it's a little bit lower, but
Okay.
still you are run into cases that is fully booked.
Okay. So what kinds of tech trends do you see happening among the general consuming population? And also, I guess we can expand this to business and business. What kind of new tech ideas are you seeing? Tech innovations are you seeing? What's going on? Because we've heard about facial recognition. We've heard about, all these fintech. I mean, what's the latest now? Is there anything new bubbling up? Particularly since you're out on the front line and seeing these entrepreneurs with ideas, what are you seeing that's new and different?
Yeah, from my point of view, I think technology wise, it's a bit stable in this few years.
Okay.
I mean, from a personal point of view, right? So, but you still see, but it's I think down the road it will be quite a few years. We're still trying to make more applications of the technological advances we have been made in the past few years. For example, AI, robotics, right? And a lot of cloud related infrastructure innovations, right? What do we call, for example, cloud native, So I do not see very outstanding, technology advances at this moment. I may be missing things, but people can tell me. but from what I see here is, but still we have huge room to apply those you just mentioned facial recognition, right? So I mean, just in terms of facial recognition, there's still a lot of applications, right? I think China is a little more advanced in terms of this, because I mean, right now I have to, whenever I get into a lot of my accounts in China, right? I have only a few accounts, but even just for those, they need to recognize my face. I mean, on my cell phone. If I don't do that, then I cannot even get into my account. So that's very advanced. But meaning that the government has been building a huge system of collecting everybody's facial images and recognize every single individual in the country. So and that technology is getting so reliable today. Yeah, and then I mean, then the question is how do you try to apply it into even more. Today, if you get into a lot of office buildings, it's also facial recognized, right? So and you can use your the facial recognition to do a lot of payment, right? So if you go to a shop, they can just recognize your face and then you're done, right? You don't need to take out your wallet. You don't need to even use a mobile payment. I mean, it is a mobile payment, but it's facial recognized. So I think all those technologies are still being applied, which still has a lot of room. Autonomous driving is still being worked on, right? And the Chinese government is working on a lot of new policies to make it happen. Yeah, I think a lot. I think one big trend is again digitalization, right? I mean, that's happening in both U.S. and China. I mean, partially because of pandemic, right? So now people realize, I mean, why do you have to go to your office, right? Why do you have to see that paper, right? Why do you have to sign it using your pen? Everything will be digital now. I mean, so and yeah, that's a huge trend, and it will be a lot of innovations and technology breakthrough to make it happen. So we do see a lot of startups working on that.
Right. What about co-working spaces? Are they, because the trend here in Silicon Valley is the housing market is very inflated right now, because people want to buy a house, they want to buy a bigger house, because now that they've gotten used to working at home and they, with their family, the home is more important than ever. So what about in China? What's happening to co-working spaces? Because I know you had some experience with WeWork, I think. So I mean, what's happening with co-working? Is that just tell us.
Yeah. Okay, so just my personal view on this. So to my from my point of view, I mean, co-working, I mean, especially in China, it's still more like a real estate, right, business. So a lot of things are driven by land use. Yeah, in a window of in a period of time in China, so people are trying to make co-working spaces mostly try to use more land use because I mean it's more like you can either use the land for residential, right? You can build houses, or you can use it for commercial. You can build shopping malls, or you can use it, you can build factories, right, for industrial uses. But Chinese government figure out it's probably even more, I mean, better use of land if you can use it for what they call, it's more like a new types of office buildings, right? So so that is co-working. I mean, WeWork is a very good model, right? I mean, so you see a lot of such incubators and co-working spaces, right, in China. I mean, there are huge numbers of those, but at the end of the day, it's more a real estate business. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you look at WeWork, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still the innovation itself, I mean, it's not really disrupting the whole thing. I mean, you're still stuck in a economic model of a real estate traditional
Right.
model. So it's pretty heavy and asset heavy, right? So you still need to maintain all those assets. So yeah, I don't think it's very easy, but from investors' point of view, it's still something people can try. I mean, it's still I would say it's still a working model, but it just you need to figure out a lot of execution details to make it work in terms of economics.
Right. So when you were at Foshan, you did a lot of healthcare type deals, right?
Quick correction. I mean, Foshan is a big healthcare corporate and investment firm.
Mhm.
I personally mostly look at from still from IT technology point of view.
Okay,
So
I see.
yeah, so healthcare. Then I mostly look at, for example, online healthcare, right? Online health, and what do you call it? AI powered, for example, AI powered pharmaceutical, AI powered. So it's more technology driven healthcare. But I don't look at the healthcare. For example,
Oh yeah, I get it.
A real farmer or a real hospital chain. Yeah, Fosun made a lot of investment in like hospital chain or drugstore chains, or medical equipment. Yeah, but I look at those from, for example, medical equipment, but it has to be smart, meaning it has to be what do you call it? It's more like a smart hardware, like it's more like IoT type of thing, but they happen to use it for medical purposes. You might need FDA approval and those things. So I talked to a lot of companies, for example, working on wristbands, but they can measure your heartbeat, or your heart rate, they made a lot of good it has to, you can use a lot of good technologies to make it happen. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's not hard. It's not really hardcore healthcare by itself.
Right. So medical devices, like IoT connected medical devices.
Smart medical device.
Right. Smart medical devices. Right. So are you looking into that area in China? Because
good question. Not on this trip yet. Not on this trip. Yeah.
So what are you looking into on this trip then?
Yeah. So far, I talked to a lot of companies in autonomous driving for semiconductors and cloud infrastructure companies. Yeah, like enterprise software. Those types. Yes. Yeah, those are very, very active in China. So and which is very similar to the US, right? So yeah, like if you pay attention, probably it's like a snowflake, right? In China, right? Like cloud-based data warehouse. So a lot of people are also working on those type of software products for big enterprise.
Right. So you're going to solve the chip shortage with your investments?
Yes, it is happening. Yes, it is happening. So it's a big topic, and it's everywhere in the headlines in China. I noticed. So a lot of you start seeing a lot of entrepreneurs leaving their current big companies and trying to start something to try to address that, which I don't think it's gonna be useful, because I think the shortage will be over, right? But the fundamental issue here is the supply chain, what do you call it, supply chain security. Basically, you want to secure your supply chain, right? So, but then how do you achieve that? Yeah, in the past, the whole semiconductor supply chain is actually quite broken, especially in the automobile industry. It's quite broken. I mean, it's very scattered and less planned, right? It's very global, but not good collaborations across different locations, right? That's why if you see a winter storm in Austin, and everybody suffer, right? Which shouldn't be happening, but that's something people are working on. But it's a big it's gonna be big efforts, right? It's not like several companies will address that, but in the end, people will try to figure out a way to make it more secured or more controlled or more or better planned in a way.
I see. And is that an area that startups and that innovators can get into, or is this just a big company?
I would say even
Answer.
big companies cannot easily address it, right? But
Mhm.
there are a lot of individual opportunities for startups. So, but
Okay.
I mean, nobody can address the whole issue, but they can help, right? For example,
Okay.
I mean, for a lot of Chinese auto manufacturers, if they can move some of supply chains to local manufacturers, then of course they'll get more security from it, and that's
Okay.
one direction they're moving into, right?
Okay.
So yeah, that will trigger a lot of entrepreneurs to start working on that.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So Ron Yu
Yeah.
has been over here with his hand raised. So Ron Yu, I hope that you're hearing me, because I'm going to allow you to talk now, and you can ask Jonathan a question directly. Okay, Ron, do you want to ask a question now? If I ask you to unmute yourself and ask a question. Or you can type your question into the chat box. So those are two options for you. And while you're dealing with that, we'll continue on and ask some more questions. Let's see, I think we got in another question here in the meantime. Another one from Paul. How are people in China viewing the recent drop in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? Yeah, that's been in the news so much. Wow.
That's an interesting question. I don't think people in China are different than other people in terms of Bitcoin.
I thought they were even crazier about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in China.
Okay, yeah. To some extent, yeah. If you look from that angle, yes, they're more aggressive, put that way. Yeah, and also, of course, the government is more less aggressive, right? It's more conservative, and so that's a disconnect. So there will be some more disconnect in that. But I have to say, Bitcoin. I mean, this is purely personal. I mean, personal views, right? I mean, Bitcoin it will always be like that, right? It will always be very, very volatile. I mean, if you're interested in that, then you have to deal with that. I mean, right. it will mechanically price to maybe to 1/10 of its current value, but it might double it or quadruple it in maybe one day. It's possible, right? That's how Bitcoin is working. And another aspect is it's what do you call it? Decentralized, right? It's basically meaning it's not really controllable by any government. That's another aspect of it. So you don't need to worry about too much about a lot of regulations or such. So, but on the other hand, you have to deal with all the volatility there. So, and you have to brace yourself. Right? It's gonna be a very, very rough ride.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But from my point of view, it's still a good investment. You just have to be very, you have to have a very strong heart to deal with it.
Oh yeah. Okay, Michael Jalaman, I'm going to allow you to talk and unmute. Okay, Michael.
So, yes, do you think that the Chinese government might ban Bitcoin mining in China because of energy issues or because it is decentralized?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I don't have I mean, a firm answer, of course. I mean, I cannot, but I would say that's a good that's some good possibility. Yeah, so that's a good possibility. So but again, like I said, I mean, it won't have a huge impact. I mean, that's the whole purpose of decentralization, right? I mean, since it's decentralized, so there's no centralized party can easily, crack you, right? So that's the whole purpose, right? I mean, not U.S. government, not Chinese government can easily totally shut you down, but you have to deal with it. You have to deal with
a lot of the mining now. A lot of the Bitcoin mining I've read is in China.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
A lot of the Bitcoin mining is being done in China.
Sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's been happening from day one, right? It's there. So, but then they can block it. I mean, you have a lot of mining sites in Xinjiang or Mongolia, right? Or yeah, but anyway, even I mean, I would say they won't. I mean, if I have to guess, right? I mean, my guess might be totally off. I mean, if they have to do something, they won't shut down everything. But even they do that, it will still won't be a end of the world. It will still be okay, I would say. So if you're an investor, I mean, just no matter what, you have to deal with all the up and downs. I mean, huge curves. Yeah, it's not just. I mean, it's just probably just one small event in all those in all the future events you're gonna deal with.
Sure. Okay.
Again, brace yourself.
Yeah, brace yourself, right. Okay, so I brought up the slide again so we can just do a checklist to see what questions we had left. And, we covered a lot of things already. I guess, Jonathan, how do people reach you? Do they reach you on WeChat or LinkedIn? Is that the way to reach you?
Yeah, I think I haven't got a chance to update my LinkedIn. So if you search me, you have to still put in Foshan. I forgot to put in Hony yet. Yeah, WeChat is good. LinkedIn is good. Email is also good.
Okay. So if you're really good friends with me and you're members of the Silicon Dragon Circle, you ask me. And otherwise, you find Jonathan on LinkedIn or WeChat. Okay, it's COVID and deal flow. That's one question we didn't get to. Is that things? It sounds like things are pretty active. That deal flow hasn't slowed down.
Yeah, very active, very active.
Okay.
And sometimes even shorten now the investment circles are actually pretty short. People are actually writing checks in very short time.
Okay. So what was your best? Yeah. Okay, that's good. And valuations are high or not? How are valuations for deals?
Valuations are high. Valuations
like
are pretty
high compared to pre-COVID or not?
Yes. If you compare with pre-COVID, it's higher. I mean, because you see a lot of liquidity in the market, right? That's also. I mean, all the governments are printing money. Okay. I mean, both U.S. and Chinese government print money. So it's I mean, partially because of that. I mean, yeah. So because of COVID, people are all doing all the stimulus, right? So which trigger all the valuation boost.
Sure. So how Common had a question earlier on about Pizza Express, and and so one of the questions here I had put is for you to talk about one of your deals. I know you were involved with the L'Oreal of China and Pizza Express.
Actually, correction, Rebecca. So those are actually deals mostly from Hony.
From Hony. Okay.
My biggest focus is still on technology. So those are more like retail, restaurants.
Yeah.
I got involved, but those are not my favorite deals. I mean,
what was your best deal?
Yeah, so I think I'm putting Tdk, right? It's a Nasdaq listed online real estate platform. It's a bit like Zillow, but they try to make transactions online. And they actually did a pretty good job in doing that. They can. So basically, you can buy a house online, right? So which is which I think both Zillow and Redfin are trying to do that too. But in China, it's happening because a lot of transactions. So people actually are used to buying an apartment without even seeing it, right? They can just look at the VR. Yeah, so if that's actually pretty common in China now. Today, people will just look at their house on their cell phone using VR, and the moment that the moment that they're into the VR, it's actually calling our agent. The agent will actually real time dialing, and they'll start introduction with you because you're working around in a VR app, right?
Okay.
And that a real person will actually immediately dial in and and tell you, okay, this is a bedroom. If you turn around, it's actually real time by a real person.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great.
They're used to seeing a house without even being there.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
So that's an very interesting trend, and a lot of good companies are doing that.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm going to do our poll now, and then I'm going to say some thank yous, like to Invest Hong Kong in particular for helping us out with this webinar. And this week is the Start Me Up Hong Kong Festival. So we're part of that. It's one reason we have our event this week, this Wednesday, Hong Kong time. So thank you, Lawrence and Invest Hong Kong and Start Me Up Hong Kong Festival as well. Actually, we've participated in that many years, and oftentimes I'm over there during that, but this year we're participating virtually. Okay, now comes a really fun part where we get to do our poll. And some of this is kind of self-interested, I have to admit. And Jonathan, if I'll read the questions out if you can't see them, and then you can kind of comment. You can comment here as well. So, how do you get your news? How do you get your news most often? Friends and family, social media, TV, print, magazine, newspaper, or newsletter. What do you think?
You mean my answer, Rebecca?
What do you? Is everybody else chiming in here? Almost
okay.
Nobody is getting their news from TV or print magazines or newspapers.
Yeah. Okay.
What's your main news source? How do you get your news?
In my case, mostly social media.
Okay, what platform?
Well, like Twitter, right? In Chinese is WeChat. It's mostly social media now. I mean,
you have WeChat in China, right?
In China, it's mostly WeChat. Yeah, WeChat, and actually, it's mostly WeChat. In my case, a lot of people using ByteDance, right? ByteDance is called Toutiao, right, in China.
Right.
And other tools.
Okay. Which online webinar format do you use most often? And 100% say Zoom. But what about for you, Jonathan? Because you mentioned something that Zoom doesn't really have a social media aspect to it. So you can't see your friends on there. So what do you use mostly?
No, but in the US, I still Zoom, right? I mean,
what do you use in China?
But in China, then the most dominant, I think, is the Tencent meeting.
Okay.
People use, and of course, Tencent meeting is back. You can use WeChat, and so it's connected, right? The account is connected. So,
okay.
That's the social graph aspect, right? So the people can easily dial into Tencent meeting from their WeChat. They can go back and forth, right? So that's one of the reasons I think it's more popular in China. Well, of course, partially because Zoom from time to time might not be working in China, but so far it's pretty good. It's pretty good. In my case, it's a bit tough because I use my Google to log into Zoom.
Oh.
Zoom is working, but Google is not. So right. So other than that, everything's working perfectly.
So you have to do a workaround on that then.
I have to first start my VPN to log into Google, and from Google to log into Zoom, and then stop VPN, because VPN can make my connection sometimes not quite stable. So I have to stop VPN again, and then back to Zoom. So it's quite a few steps before I can use Zoom.
I see. Well, okay. Well, we're really glad to have you on and uninterrupted as well.
Sure.
And a good signal too. So, okay, how many people are on Clubhouse? I finally got on because they introduced a non-Apple version of it. So yes, more than 29% are on. Are you on Clubhouse, Jonathan?
I think so, but I wasn't that active, especially
Okay.
yeah, after I left the US on this trip.
Okay.
I heard users of Clubhouse actually also getting less active than before.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard too.
Yeah.
Twitter has its own thing now called Spaces. I haven't tried that out yet. I just don't have time.
Yeah, I heard that.
To try everything. But I might do a club on Clubhouse. We'll see, or Twitter. But I really like this Zoom format. And actually, we'll do a few more of these where we'll do a Zoom meeting where everybody can see one another. And then we can talk more regularly. Because Ron, I'm sorry we didn't get your question. I tried to get you to talk, but you were somehow muted still. Okay. How many online meetings seminars do you attend weekly? 11 or more is the most common answer. And then Michael, I think you need to mute yourself. And then do you expect this year to be a good earnings year for you compared with pre-COVID economy? Yeah, what do you think, Jonathan, for yourself? What do you think?
The year of 2021?
Yeah, compared with pre-COVID economy. Is this going to be a good earnings year for you? Good result?
Yes, in terms of investments, yeah, I think it's going to be a good year. It should be a good vintage year. A lot of people coming back. Yeah, so yeah, because if you make an investment today, of course, you can only see a return a few years later, right? So we call it vintage year. So I think if you make it, yeah, if you make an investment this year in 2021, it's gonna be a good future return.
Okay. Yeah. Now everybody has received their vaccine who's on this call. So that's great. Thank you everyone for participating in the polling. I'll share out the results now so that everybody can see what the results were. Can you see the results?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it myself.
Okay, let's just see. I think we had one last question. Let's see. No, maybe we don't. Okay. Well, look, Ron, I'll give you one last chance to say something. Ron Yu. It's calling Ron Yu. Ron Yu, I don't know what happened to him, but he's been on here. But thank you everyone for listening in. And let me just say a few words about what we have coming up in our next program. Our next programs will be in 2 weeks. We have Bill Reichert from Garage, used to be with Garage. And then we have, here he is, June 10th, 4 p.m. June 10th, 4 p.m. Bill Reichert. He's now with Tdk Ventures, but he was with Garage Technology for many years. And, you know, he's, good friends with Tim Draper. And he's a real Silicon Valley legend here. So then after that, 2 weeks after that, we've been doing this bi-weekly now, June 16th, 4 p.m. Tdk Ventures. Tdk Ventures is it's a corporate VC, and they have a new fund. And so that's going to be interesting to hear from them about how they're going to be investing that new fund. And then just a final thank you to everyone for staying with us. We've been doing this show for more than a year now, and it's been great to have everyone and have this opportunity to see everyone online. And then I think maybe I'll do another one of the Hollywood Square types of programs so that everybody can see one another again. But for now, 2 weeks from now, we'll be back with Bill Reichert. And then 2 weeks after that, another Tdk Ventures. So thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. I hope you enjoyed the experience.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
All right, good. All right, well, so then everyone, good night from here and good morning to Hong Kong and Beijing and Shanghai. All right, bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.